Well, glory be and mercy me, we've done it yet again. Here we are. How are you all doing today? I have had an absolutely beautiful day, I have to tell you. Just an absolutely beautiful day. Uh, got a wonderful gift from one of my Patreons who, for his own reasons, felt inclined to donate a considerable amount to the cause. I'm a bit staggered by it, honestly. And it really triggers my, I don't know what to call it, my, oh, there's a word for it and I'm blanking on it, I'm sorry. It's where you, imposter syndrome, that's the word. It really triggers my imposter syndrome whenever something like this happens. Because I always have looming in the back of my mind a dark suspicion that all of this is going to fail. It's not going to work. That's the looming suspicion that exists in the back of my mind. And it's odd because the more successful I become, the more that looming dread seems to set in. I hope that it goes away when I hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, but there's no promise of that. And so I'm so grateful that someone came along and thought so well of me that they would give me such a wonderful gift. And I hope that that continues. I hope as we go into the Christmas season, maybe. Although I don't really celebrate Christmas. It is beginning. It seems as though even the darkest curmudgeon, even the most curmudgeonly person that exists within the society finally says, all right, December is here. We've created a hard line on Halloween. We have said, no, Christmas may not come any further than this. Halloween is Halloween. How dare you infringe Christmas upon us? And then November is sort of like this neutral ground. It's like this neutral territory where there's still like Thanksgivings and there's like Remembrance Day is in there and like everything's in there. So, but Christmas is still like this omnipresent force. Like people change over, like companies change over their decoration from Halloween to Christmas, basically the night of October 31st. They like flip it over. And yet everyone is still like, no, we don't want it. We have to resist Christmas. How dare you? How dare you? And then, but December, even the darkest, like the bleakest, most against Christmas person that you can find is still like, yes, very well. Tinsel, candy canes, Santa Claus, Jesus Christ, like the whole thing, right? And so here we go, right? Where it's Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You" and all of the gaudy bullshit. My biggest complaint about Christmas, I mean, outside of the capitalist critique, because you guys know me. Hey, Mocked, how you doing? Yeah, Christmas already has 4 months. Come on. The capitalist critique is obvious, right? Like, it's literally a co-opting of a family holiday built around a religious icon that is about a critique of wealth and materialism and is executed for standing up for those principles. And then has been co-opted by capitalists in order to sell garbage that you don't need as a way to replace the time that you've lost with your loved ones, right? So instead of spending time with your loved ones in the first place and actually building relationships and actually having a connection to these people, instead you get ground into a capitalist system that then says, and on Christmas you take the excess money that you've made, wasting it grinding away on the capitalist system, and you buy a bauble that you give to a person as if to say, here, this will replace the love. That this is an icon. This is a manifestation of my love. that is real somehow, intangible somehow. This certainly replaces the time we've lost together. And but outside of that critique, which I mean that's the capitalist critique of Christmas. Uh, uh, Here in North America, hello Alex, how are you doing? Alex, thank you so much for your wonderful gift. I don't really like to out people very often, but your gift was so, I mean, is extravagant a word that I'm allowed to use? That I have to thank you directly for it. Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it. I value your commitment to what it is that I am doing. Thank you so much. If there is anything I can do to help you along, you let me know, okay, bud? Thank you so much. And it's humbling. It's humbling to know that there are people who are really willing to back me like that. So thank you. And but the thing that kills me about Christmas is that it's supposed to be like holy and reverent and like joyful and but it's just gaudy. It's just gaudy. I just keep finding myself walking around the neighborhood just being like, ugh, ugh, ugh. Like people have like the ridiculous strings of lights, right? And like there does come a point where it's so garish and it's so gaudy that it becomes impressive, you know? Like it's so like overwhelming. And I can't help but feel that I'm like looking at these lights and I'm like, we are in the midst of a climate catastrophe and you are like literally lighting up your house in the most garish way possible. And the worst the worst offenders these days, because the worst offenders used to be like the single string of lights like on your porch, right? Just kind of like a tacked on sort of, but then like this garish, ridiculous, blinking, twinkling lights. But now the worst offenders are the blow up. Like the blow up Santa that's just on the front yard being like, I'm blow up Santa Claus. And you're just like, this is like, this, once you're past the age of 5, you've got to think that this looks ridiculous. Like, it always looks dumb. It always looks ridiculous. And I can see a justification for it being like, we're going to put this up for a single day in order to like have like an event or something. That makes a certain type of sense. But then there are people who like leave them out for months. And every day you've got to walk by to get your bus stop and you walk by this ridiculous, stupid looking Santa Claus. That like, I like, I don't have some dignity, I guess, is what I would call it. Like, garish gaudiness is Halloween territory. Thank you very much. You are allowed to be as gaudy and garish and as ridiculous as you would like to be on Halloween. For sure. You can do anything you like on Halloween. Oh, Christmas lights, oh, Christmas lights. You violate our human rights. Yeah. Hey, Harry, how you doing today, bud? So I just, like, I think my favorite thing to do over the holiday seasons is actually to go to a church that is singing a choir. When they have a choir that is singing Christmas hymns and Christmas songs, and I don't mean like singing like a Beatles rendition or like singing like Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You or any of this. I mean literally they are singing like old school like 6th century hymns. That shit's always great. That's always great. You sit on an uncomfortable bench for an hour in a church that's falling apart, that's steadily becoming more and more dilapidated, and you listen to people who are obviously dedicated to the spiritual pursuit of music itself and are doing so. Usually they are paying to be in that choir. that is how dedicated they are to simply being able to sing these tunes. And it's always beautiful. That's the one thing on Christmas that if somebody says to me, "You want to go see that choir?" I'll be like, "Fuck yeah, let's go. Let's go." Because when else are you ever going to see this shit? I highly recommend. Find your local church. Find the choir that's doing this, right? It's always beautiful, even when it's not, even when they're bad. It's still a good time. Like, it's still wonderful. Have you found such a church? Most churches honestly do this. Like, honestly, like, go to your local church. Like, find the big stone building, right? Walk in the front door and ask them, "Hey, when are you doing your choir thing?" Right? Most churches actually do this. Because, like, it's embedded in their tradition, and people want to do it. Like, the people who actually go to the church and the people who are participating in that, they want to do it. Like, this offensive, insulting narrative that if you gave people the support they needed, food and shelter, they'd just sit around and be lazy. I'm just like, go fuck yourselves, man. Like, I find that to be, like, aggressively offensive. That, like, there are so many people doing so many lovely, wonderful things, and they usually pay to do it, right? So, and like, this idea that people are just going to sit around and be lazy, or that they're going to, like, do something that's counterproductive, or do something that doesn't actually help the society. I'm just like, get the fuck out of here with that. Like, it's embarrassing at this point. The people who are still saying it are just cringy and embarrassing people who like, have, like, the bleakest worldview that you could possibly imagine. Yeah, exactly. Most of the work I do, I don't get paid for. Yeah, like, we are purposefully discarded by this system, right? Because they know that the work that we do is not going to be valuable to them, right? That much of the work that we're going to do is going to be what they'll call countercultural, but what I would call cultural, right? Yeah, we're building a culture. We're building a new society, right? Out of the ashes of this dilapidated corpse that you keep insisting we funnel energy into, right? So, of course they're going to be against that, right? They don't want alternative ideas, right? They don't want facts and reason and empathy to take hold of the society. They don't want an educated populace. They don't want us to actually know things. So, hey Major, how you doing? I'm not ignoring you. Have you heard of the YouTube channel The New Atlas? I have not. Okay, hold on. Let's do the number, and then I'll take a look at this new atlas, okay? So let's draw the number. I am in on a 2.
Here we go for today's number.
Let's go.
It's November 30, 2021.
Here we go.
10 balls.
Hey, Pissed Off, how you doing, bud? Good to see you.
Each ball has a number.
Good to see you too. Good spread today.
Numbers 1 through
Great
10.
to see you, bud. Great to see you. Here we go.
Whirl the numbers.
Whirl the numbers. Here we go.
Pick a number. Today's number is 8.
Wow. Are you kidding me? We had was it 50%? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was a 70% chance. We had a 70% chance to hit that. And he threaded it right through. He just squeaked right between mocked and pissed off. Yeah, well, what can you do? No David Lynch energy for you today. I rather like that, I have to tell you. I rather like that we had like such a high chance of hitting it and we all whiffed. That's life, isn't it? That's life. Oh yes, let's take a look. What was it? The new atlas. Let's take a look. Who's this guy? The reason people want amnesty and... Oh, yes, I do know this guy. I know this guy. I haven't subscribed to him. There, I'm going to subscribe to him. I see that guy around all the time, especially... he was really... really... Not central, but like he really came out of the woodwork in regards to the Uyghur genocide stuff. That when the Uyghur genocide was kind of on its denouement, honestly... Yeah, like you're seeing, right? He's a guy who's kind of kept on with it. I think that's the best way to talk about it. That he wasn't, like, when it was at its peak, when it was at its, like, biggest height, he wasn't the guy. It was, like, Daniel Dumbrill. And honestly, Bay Area 415, which, God rest his soul, wherever you are, Bay Area 415, I hope you're well, and I hope you come back. No, it was an 8. See, we had an 80 fucking percent chance with that guess, Chris, and we missed it anyway. It's hilarious. I think that's so funny. An 80% chance to hit it, and we missed it. Oh, that's amazing. I don't know. I actually like that a little bit better. Like, if one of you had to hit it, I would have been like, oh, great, and you got the David Lynch energy, and that's wonderful. But because we all missed it with such a high chance of getting it, there's something beautiful. Something beautiful about that kind of failure. Yeah, so this guy... So after the peak kind of went down and everybody... and everybody kind of not chilled out about it, because there's still this ridiculous pounding narrative about it. But the media definitely calmed down about it, and definitely it became more of like a dull hum behind the culture, as opposed to like the thing being thrust in front of our face the whole time. And this guy here, the new Atlas, has basically kept on with it. Like, every time a new thing comes out about it, he's just like, well, even 2 weeks ago, right? The U.S.-backed Uyghur separatists are losing their mind and all this kind of stuff. His commentary is good, near as I can tell. All the power in the world to him. So, good luck, Godspeed. Yeah, the new Atlas. I don't know why I've never gone like deep on this guy. It's just so much work to do a deep dive on somebody, honestly. That's really what it comes down to. It's so much work to do a deep dive on people. And honestly, like, you wait long enough and somebody's going to do a deep dive on a guy like this. And near as I can tell, his position is like as clean as can be. He's pro-China, obviously. Like, he's definitely on that side of the conversation. Does he tip over to being a little bit too lenient on China? I don't know, but there's the man. Okay, let's move on. So I found this video to be really eye-opening, right? Because the destruction of what's happened in British Columbia has kind of become focused on the infrastructure, right? Focused on the road. That the bridge is out. The bridge to Vancouver is out. That's kind of where it is. This video really shows you, no, dude, we're talking about a scale of devastation that we don't really understand.
We saw a lot of cows being rescued in news footage and social media video, and we know a huge proportion of BC's eggs and chicken come from the Fraser Valley. Do you have any kind of number or even rough estimate as to the number of animals that died in all of this?
Well, actually, yesterday I mentioned that we're not going to be reporting out on those numbers for the next little while. I have a ton of contacts that I text with farmers all day, all night. And one of the messages that they said was they every time they hear those totals, it's very traumatic. So just to respect the livestock producers over the next little while, we're going to steer away from reporting out on those numbers, which of course are going up. But it's just so painful for them right now that they want us to focus on the positive things.
Sorry to hear that, Gunk. I'm sorry to hear that. Your home was flooded. That's very unfortunate, bud. No damage. You didn't rise past the concrete foundation. That's very lucky, dude. That's very lucky. You must have been just kind of on the outskirts of it, yeah? Still, though, still, I am of two minds of this narrative that says we shouldn't be reporting the numbers of the animals, right? Because, like, I hear what she is saying, and I think that is, there is something, it's fair, right? The people who are involved in this catastrophe are human beings who are obviously going through a tragedy, and to start breaking it down into statistics and numbers very quickly, it is traumatizing. It is traumatizing, right? It's alienating, right? It's why we as people involved in the capitalist system are alienated from the system, because we are commodified. We are turned into statistics and numbers. We are not considered as humans. We get looked at on a spreadsheet almost exclusively and reallocated in that way. And so I can respect the position that says we don't want to humanize the situation quite yet. There is going to come a point where they are going to release those numbers. And another reason why, but on the flip side of this, I worry that they're not releasing those numbers because they know people like me, right? People like me, are going to pick up that number and are going to be like, dude, like 100,000 cows died, right? Like how many cattle do you think died in the midst of this, right? Well, it's they know that if they put a number to how much this has done, it becomes a major talking point for enemies of the capitalist death cult. They know that this is a climate change catastrophe that was avoidable, that should have been addressed. We know that there were people ringing the bells about this. We know that there were people telling the government that this was going to happen, right? This was predictable. You understand? Like, this was predictable. And they know that if they start coming out with big numbers, I think you're onto something too, Gunk, that they don't want to shock the stock market, and it will, right? There will be, because like if they say like 100,000 cattle died, well, that's going to have, there's going to be big price corrections that come from that. That's a decrease in the amount of supply while demand remains consistent, right? So that's going to have an altering effect on what happens. And of course, in a free market system, that means that the price of meat goes up, straight up, and the price of milk, and the price of eggs, and the price of chicken, right? All that stuff. And so there's that aspect of it. But like, I really do think that the number one thing, that if I was the current leader of the capitalist death cult, right, that I don't want climate change activists, i.e. the people who are on the right side of this conversation, to have a concrete number, that, and especially when the number is going to be as extreme as it is, right? The number that we are going to see, look at this wreckage, guys. Like, look at this. Like, look at this. Like, if the number is lower than 100,000, I will actually be very surprised. Like, the number is going to be high. The devastation is enormous. It is going to, it is absolutely going, when they release this number, people like me are 100% going to use it as a talking point. For sure. Like, it's an inevitability. So I completely get why they don't want to release that number. And I don't want to take away the reality that, like, the people who are undergoing this trauma, right? Like, that's real. That's real. Oh, you guys are talking about merch stores. Holy shit. I'm just one man. I'm just one man. I don't even know how to do that shit, dude. I don't even know how to do that shit. I do know that YouTube starts to give me the option of being able to do that kind of stuff. I do need to get a shirt that says Capitalist Death Cult on it, for sure. Like, that's something I should design. I need to design a logo that says Capitalist Death Cult and try to get it on a shirt. Maybe sell it to you guys. I need Yetis. Glad to see you, bud. Good to see you. In America, there's no talk about what happened in Canada with the flooding. That's not that surprising, because honestly, like, America doesn't really report international news. Like, America is so insular. Like, that's part of the strategy, right? Like, America only cares about itself. That it doesn't report on what happens in other countries, no matter what. Even if it's an invasion, right? Even if it's an invasion. Chris, dude, if you want to make merch designs, you go crazy. You go. I'm not gonna stop anybody from doing anything, dude. What a gift that would be to me, honestly. How are they going to justify these farmers continuing to produce on the Sumas Prairie when it will inevitably flood again? Yeah, how could this area ever be insured again? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, what kills me about this? Like, what kills me about this is that it was all perfectly predictable, right? Like, we know that there were people talking, and moreover, we know that there were people talking about that the systems that were in place to prevent this very thing were crumbling, that the infrastructure was crumbling. But capitalists can't actually deal with repairing things and doing any of that, because that cuts into their profit margin, right? That their whole ethos is based on this idea of just like, well, the free market will decide. Well, here's the free market deciding, right? Here's chaos bringing order, right? And so we're having huge, like, think about the amount of like, if you were to actually take the amount of damage that has been done here and actually stick a dollar value on it, I guarantee that dollar value is way higher than just creating the infrastructure, creating the dams, creating, or even repairing, right? That we've got reports coming. Hey, Chris, how you doing, bud? We've got reports coming out saying that that it's infrastructure failure, like the dikes are failing, right? As early as 5 years, right? 5 years before this event, people are saying like, hey, like these are in need of repair, right? We should probably get to that. And they're just completely, yeah, capitalists, the free market will decide. Also, capitalists continually bail out fossil fuel companies, right? Because the capitalists at the end of the day don't really believe what they say. Like, that's part of it. Like, they don't actually believe what they say. That it's free market capitalism when it comes to you, but when it comes to them, the owners of the society, well, the free market doesn't apply, right? So not only is it a religious ideology, it's a religious ideology that they themselves are heretics of, right? Like, they don't even believe it. So, and yet this is how they want to order the society. Like, so it's just chaos upon chaos, right? It's literally a group of chaos death knights walking around inflicting chaos on everything they touch, but insisting that they be entrenched in the society through a very structurally ordered system, right? Like, it's incoherent, and yet it's it's always the same thing over and over and over again, right? Like, how oh, we should probably fix the dike. Well, how much is that going to cost, right? Do you think you're on a government watch list? I'm nowhere near important enough for that, I got to tell you. I think that if I were on a government watch list, I'm probably well at the bottom. I did see the video of you protesting outside Doug Fort's home. Yeah. If I am, hello, hi, right? This is the voice of the revolution. I hope that you guys understand that you're on the wrong side of it, right? Like, the institutions that you are defending are incredulous. They have no credibility left whatsoever. Like, to a single institution. There isn't a single institution that has credibility in this society. And there is going to come a point, if things continue in this way, there is going to come a point where there are going to be masses of people on the street who are willing to commit to a path of violence in order to get their way. And are you willing to stop them? That's what's coming, right? Like the January 6th insurrection was just kind of the shot across the bow, right? And that's what we're seeing these days, right? What we're seeing here, this is just a shot across the bow, right? Like the mass devastation, the mass flooding, the millions, if not billions of dollars that are lost due to this, right? This is merely a shot across the bow. And they're going to get bigger, and they're going to get more aggressive, and they're going to get larger, and they're going to get more destructive as we continue to steer this ship directly into it, right? Like, and it's as incoherent as it can be. Like we are as absurd as we can get as a people, that we really are putting ourselves into positions where we are willing to spend hundreds of billions of dollars in damages, but are refusing to spend millions of dollars in order to prevent those damages, because the free market will decide. Like, let chaos reign, chaos brings order, right? Like, this is what you get for defying reality. This is what you get for detaching yourself from what is actually happening in the world. Right? If you don't have a materialist historical analysis and you're only interested in the worship of money, right, which is what we're doing as a society, then these are the outcomes. And they're going to continue being this way. And anytime I talk to like a conservative type, anytime, right, they always say like, well, this is a 1 in like 500 year event. Like, these events have happened in the past. This is all this good. And my response is steadily becoming like, man, we're having a lot of 1 in 500, 1 in 100 year events, eh? Like, it's interesting how all these like 1 in 100 year events keep happening like in the same period of time, right? Isn't that crazy? Just recommended your channel to a friend. He seems really enthusiastic about it. Baller. This is a great opportunity to say to all you guys, like, tell your friends, tell your family, right? I'm just on the precipice. I'm almost at 800 subscribers. That's 80% of what I need in order to get this channel monetized. That I want to get to 1,000 subscribers, and the way to do that is to convince all of you lovely people to just ask a friend or a family member to just subscribe to me, even if they don't give a shit about me, right? Like, just go grab your girlfriend's phone and get her to subscribe, right? Like, let's be as chintzy about this as we can get. This is it. This is the subscriber drive, right? It'd be so I predicted, not predicted, that's not the right word, but I hypothesized that I could have made it to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I'm going to miss it, probably. But pretty close. So I'm pretty pleased about how the growth of the channel is going. But if I could get to 1,000 subscribers, that would change how this place operates. 1,000 subscribers is when everything changes. And hopefully for the better, right? My big concern is that I'll reach 1,000 subscribers, then YouTube will look at me and be like, yeah, maybe not. But the existence of commentators like Hassan, Hakeem, right? Second Thought, shows me that YouTube is open to this and might actually even believe that, like, yeah, if the society turns this way, we need to actually give them this space in order to move forward. And if this is what the society wants to do, then we, YouTube, should facilitate that. Why would we stand in the way? Why would we stand in the way? So that's my pitch to you guys. And hey, if you want to give me like $1 in the Patreon, I'm not going to stop you from that either. Yeah, I say that because I know it will come for people like you and me, and we'll be demonized and blamed for what happens. Yeah, there is that element, isn't there? Like a whole McCarthyian upswell. Which is possible, but unlikely in Canada. Like, it's very unlikely that the Liberals would commit to such a thing. It's actually fairly unlikely that the Conservatives would commit to such a thing, like, honestly. As much as I like to shit on them and dunk on them all the time, like who are you actually talking about when you're talking about conservatives, right? Like, you're talking about like your rural uncles and your dad, right? Like, There's no like overwhelming fascist movement that's seizing control of the Conservative Party. So I feel like that we're not there yet. I'm sure that there are voices in the conversation that would love to be doing that kind of stuff, but they're not seizing control in big ways. I live in the belly of the beast of the capitalistic world of New York City, so I see the horrors of the capitalistic death cult every day. Yeah, dude, it's, New York's a whole other beast. Like, and I worry about New York. Like, we could get some real, like, gangs of New York shit going on in New York, man. Like, the veneer of civilization is just that. It is a veneer. And as the wealthy begin to kind of adopt an ideology of like the most terrifying aspect of the capitalist death cult's ideology is the idea that what's going on is just nature, right? So it really is just like the law of the jungle, right? Might makes right. Whoever has the ability to do violence is the rightful ruler. Like straight up, like these are the things that they are saying. These are the things that come out of their mouths. And like, you start to see like, okay, like if we get into like a real desperate situation, like are there going to be like purge kind of people going around trying to do shit? Hey Vince, how you doing, bud? Yeah, it's quite sad to see mentally ill homeless people sitting on the sidewalk while rich people wearing Gucci and Louis Vuitton driving Lambos. Plus the segregation within the city. Majority of African Americans live in the projects, and next to the project are $1 million apartments. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And I actually have a really interesting clip that kind of talks about a piece of that experience, right?
What percent of the police live in the city?
About 5% or so.
5%, so 95% don't live in the city.
Yes, sir.
So when you say that the vast majority of the percentage goes towards salaries, etc.,
Yes, sir.
fringe benefits, that means that they take their money on 81, go to outside the city, pay taxes in those communities that have some of the best schools while we have an underfunded school district.
$60 million up.
So I just want to put into context what we're talking about, because it's really easy to say, Mayor, and with all due respect, I like you, but that was a very politician answer.
I'm sorry, what specifically?
We will consider and we will look. What we're saying is we're not interested in considering and looking. What we're saying is actually there's 50 million, commit to 20 million cut.
Right.
Because we're sending money as the mayor of Syracuse. When you don't have a tax base, you're sending money out of Syracuse, and not just for 30 years, for the rest of their life. Because their pensions, their health insurance, their families. So we are funding for other people's communities to have the promise of the American dream while we are denying it in our community. That's the context that you as the mayor have to look at this under. So when we talk about renegotiating union contract, what we're saying is you can't play around with maybe no, y'all gotta go because you don't provide a service that is beneficial to the community, that is meaningful to the community. The services that you provide criminalize our community, impoverish our community, reallocate resources to suburbs. We are actually funding the suburbs, both in our police departments and in our schools. And to be clear, it's not just the fact of like the percentage of people. We're also funding what race of people on the police force. The percentage of race of teachers as well, superintendent, board president. So we want to put in context because it's not just a class issue, it's a race issue. We're telling black and brown people and poor people, you don't matter. The devil's in the data and in the details. Mayor, respectfully, it is not acceptable for us to be here considering.
So why I really wanted to show that clip is because he really does point out that like a lot of these communities, right, where the police are operating are not where the police live, right? That it is an occupation. Like, whether or not that's intentional, like we can have that conversation more and more every day. I am beginning to see and realize that, yes, of course, this is being done intentionally, right? but that the people who are responsible for policing the areas that they are working in don't live there, right? It's no way to run a community. It's no way to run a society. It's no way to run anything, right? Because if they don't actually live in the communities that they police, then it's an occupation, and they're an occupying force. And the people who live in those areas are the ones that end up paying those people the taxes, that then that money turns around and leaves the area completely, right? And meanwhile, the occupying force isn't actually interested in being part of that community because they're not, right? That's just where they go to do their work. A good argument for toll roads into the city. I mean, for God's sakes, toll roads are one of those things. I mean, you guys know me. I'm fairly extreme in my views. Like, I really think that we have to be talking seriously about getting rid of these cars. Like, seriously. Like, the idea that every single individual just has like a chassis that can seat 5 people and consumes fossil fuels in order to do it. Like, it's an absurdism wrapped into an absurdism. And we absolutely should be tolling the roads. For sure. Even John Tory suggested that it happen, but he backed off because his own base was against it. And it's like, I see it as something of an inevitability. Like, it just needs to be done. And the only reason it doesn't happen is because our system is childish and creates children. Like, we don't actually plan stuff. We don't actually think about things. And like, the toll that Tory was suggesting was literally 10 cents. Like, just absolutely nothing. And people just lost their minds about it. Well, they revealed that they had already lost their minds. Yeah, people need homes, and there are at least 250,000 units of apartments, homes empty due to speculation of buyers and renters. Yeah. No, and the politicians are saying we're going to build more affordable housing as if that's going to matter, right? Like, the same speculators are just going to buy up that housing, right? It's right in front of our faces. Like, it's very, very obvious what's happening. And, so much for your free market capitalism. You should look up Avenues School in New York. It's the most prestigious private school. Tuition from K-12 is $50K a year, and it's right across the project's public housing. It should be illegal to pay for schooling, straight up. Like, you should not be able to take money and give it to somebody to educate your kid in a private manner. Because what that lets you do is it lets you create like a prestigious little cult that you call a school, right? Hey, Kevin, how you doing, bud? You get a little cult that you call a school that's actually just there to sort of prop your children up and make them get the right connections so that, like, Princess whoever meets Prince whatever, and those two connect with one another, and the family dynasties of these two are maintained and established through the connections they build in the private school. And it creates an argument for, well, why am I paying taxes over here then? Why bother paying taxes over here? Whereas if you just make it so that can't happen, well, then it forces them to look at the school that their children are going to go to, because that's what's going to happen, and say, well, then I want that school to be the best it possibly can be. And it doesn't matter if all of the other kids that are going there are poor, right? Some of the kids are poor, some of the kids are wealthy. They're going to get the best education because the rich people are going to want their kids to have a good education. Well, a brain drain of the best teacher, well, certainly the most compliant teachers. Like, I get very skeptical of this best thing, like of the what defines best, right? And near as I can tell, best within the context of education under a capitalist model means compliance. Who is going to be obedient? Who is going to espouse the what the wealthy want to see, right? Not what the majority want to see, not what the science says is useful, none of that. Who is the most obedient, right? And so the best in a capitalist context becomes exclusively the teachers who do what we say, right? So like put that in like an American context, like an American South context. Well, if I don't want critical race theory or anything taught about race in my school, in my private school, well, then the best teachers are the ones who are going to go along with that, right? Not necessarily the ones who understand the subject matter, not necessarily the ones who have something interesting to say about it, not necessarily the ones who are going to teach the subject in an interesting way, but just the ones who are going to do what they're told. And that's what an education system looks like in a capitalist structure. What about separate Catholic school boards? Fuck the Catholics. Like, fuck the Catholics. Sorry. Fuck the Catholics. I don't give a shit about Catholicism. Right? Like, if there is any institution that we should be looking at and being like, what's the point of this again? It's the Catholics. Like, sorry, like, you're maintaining a system of poverty. You keep voting for the people who are maintaining a system of poverty while holding up an icon that tells you to get rid of poverty. Like, get fucked. Straight up. I say that for all religious institutions across the board. Get fucked. These guys are hysterically heretical. They don't read their own text. They are, all of them, without exception, illiterate cowards. No exceptions. Even the nice ones. Even if you're sitting there being like, oh, my local priest is so kind and nice and she holds a pot, like, yeah, she's a fraud, a coward, and a hack. And a heretic. She doesn't even care about the book that she holds, right? She doesn't care at all. Even a little bit. She doesn't read it. She doesn't organize from it. She doesn't care about it. She cares about maintaining the system of poverty and then suckering liberals into giving her money so that she can take 1% of that money and hold a potluck and then take the rest of the money, keep it for herself and give it to the fucking church so that they can do what with it? Oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island, right? Fuck all of those institutions, without exception, across the board. The only way I will ever recant on this position against all of these religious institutions is if they start to organize protest movements in the streets, like they should have been all along. The idea that they are holding onto a book that tells them give your money to the poor while living in a society that says poor people are evil and we should shit on them is hysterical. It's a joke. There isn't a, like, these are frauds is what they are. Like, read the Bible one time. Don't even do a deep dive of it, right? Good to see you too, Alex. Have a good one. Don't even do a fucking deep dive of it. Like, read the Bible one time. Don't read, and not even the Old Testament, right? And you know what? I'll even double down even bigger than that. Just pick one of the Gospels. One of them. Right? Whichever one you want. Matthew was a tax collector who wrote a daily diary and got some of Jesus's best lectures, right? Some of his best speeches, right? Mark was following around the leader of the church, who is Peter, who was an illiterate fisherman, and writing down stories that Peter told him. Luke was a historian that came into the region after the fact and captured the historical essence of what occurred according to the people who told him the story. And John was Jesus's best friend, and maybe even more than that. He is called the apostle that Jesus loved. Pick one. Whichever one of those sounds the most enticing to you, read it. And at the end of reading it, if you do not, no, I'm not even going to say it that way. At the end of reading that, you will realize that every religious institution, every church, every cathedral, every single one is utterly fraudulent. They're irredeemably so. They do not at all care about their Christ. They do not at all care about ameliorating poverty. They do not at all give one shit whatsoever about helping anyone do anything. Their goal is to sucker liberals out of their money. Period. No exceptions. And if they want to convince me otherwise, then they can join me in the streets in protest. Then they can use their position to say to other people, we must fight back against this evil darkness that Christ himself would fight against, and we must take to the streets to reestablish a reasonable, compassionate society. They're not interested in that. They're just as culpable. They're all frauds. So fuck their school boards. Fuck their school boards. Get rid of them. They're just teaching kids how to hate the poor while holding onto a book that tells them to do the opposite. Fuck it. Ugh. I hate that shit, man. Nothing gets me more wound up than that. Like, because at least the business guys are just psychopaths, right? At least they're not pretending. Like, at least a guy like Kevin O'Leary is walking around being like, yeah, fuck the poor. They're pieces of shit. I'm the best. Whatever. Go fuck yourself, right? At least they're being honest about that, right? The churches get to walk around and pretend like they actually care, right? And little grandmothers will like give, oh, you could have a deal. Like, it's gross. It's fucking gross what they do. Like, way worse than what fucking O'Leary is doing. Because at least O'Leary's like walking around with a dagger being like, hey, you're in my way. Right? Like, at least he's being like, yeah, I'm going to kill you, right? Like, oh, I got you, right? Like, he's not pretending to be something else. It's just, as it's duplicitousness upon duplicitousness when it comes to all the religious institutions. The Anglicans, the Unitarians, the Baptists, the Catholics, certainly the Catholics, right? The Presbyterians, the Evangelicals, without a doubt, right? With their stupid goddamn prosperity gospel, right? Like, they're all frauds. They're all frauds. Don't give them your money. Like, don't give them your money. They should be taxed out of existence, right? I don't see why they exist in the first place. What's the point of these? So that little grandmothers can come together and have like a nice place to sit on Sundays, and and so they can have like a fucking barbecue on Thursdays to pretend like they actually care about the poor they vote to maintain the system of poverty and inflict upon them. Like, get fucked across the board. I have nothing but loathing for these institutions. Really disappointed with the ONDP today. $20 minimum wage by 2026 is too small. 2026? Are you kidding me? At that point, it should be at least 30. Yeah, but like, that's how low the bar is, right? Like, they're gonna, at least they're saying something, right? At least they're offering something. Like, when they finally stood up and said that they were going to offer that, I was like, oh, good. So they're actually capable of offering something. That was my big concern about these guys. My big concern about the ONDP was like, are they literally just going to walk into this election without actually saying anything, right? Were they literally just going to walk into this election and just be like, yeah, vote NDP. We're not Doug Ford. Like, so finally they come out with something. And they've also got like, ONDP plans to build 69,000 affordable homes. Pointless. The wealthy will buy it. And increase, this is interesting though. Increase non-resident speculation tax to 20%. Now we're starting to talk about something, okay? Like, I still think that that's throwing like a cup of water into into a tsunami, right? And oh, Ward, dude, I will never edit my thoughts on religious organizations. Like, the fraudulence within fraudulence. Like, at least the capitalists are honest about how they want to betray you. So a speculation tax to 20%, it's not going to stop them is the problem, right? 20% is still not enough to stop these guys from doing this, right? Like, we want to stop non-resident speculation. Why are we dicking with it? Why are we dickering around? We want to stop it from happening, right? Right? Isn't that something we want to stop from happening? Like, we want exactly 0% of it, right? We don't want 1% of it. We don't want 5% of it. We want 0%. So we should increase the non-resident speculation tax to 100%. We should guarantee that this is an activity that you simply cannot do, right? You will not be successful at it. You will lose all of your money. It will be disastrous for you. It is not a way to make money. If you are a non-resident speculating in our market, the tax rate is 100%. And they'll turn around and cry and be like, that chases us out of the market. And our response is, that's exactly right. Correct. It achieves the goal. And I don't understand why anyone would argue that the goal should not be get rid of these speculators entirely. What possible argument exists to say that there should be a certain degree of speculation in the market, especially non-resident speculation? Like, what argument can you put forward? Is there an argument for why there should be any non-resident speculation? Right? There isn't any. So put that tax rate to 100%, get rid of the problem. Solve it. You could do it immediately. Like, immediately. You put it at 100%, suddenly all these guys are going to want to sell their properties. Why are they going to want to sell their properties? Because if once the law goes in, they'll never get any money for it. Right? That it's literally gone. I actually go even farther than this. I straight out say, like, no, move it or lose it. Right? If you're not living in it, right? If you're not living in it, right? And if nobody is living in it, right? And we know that that's the case. We do a census. Straight up, just like, yeah, you've got a month to move this, right? And if you don't move it, we take it. And no, I don't mean we buy it. Like, I have no sympathy whatsoever for these guys. Like, none at all. Like, these capitalists that are going to cry about it and be like, oh, but it's our bride. Get fucked. Get out of here. Get fucked. I don't care. I don't care at all. And I think that the people who do care are weird. Like, it's weird. It's a weird position to take. To be like, oh, this guy that owns 20 houses is crying because now he can't run this grift on the populace, throw people out onto the streets, maintain a system of poverty and homelessness, while also ensuring that the hardest working people in the society, right, and the most educated people in the society can't actually get houses, right? Drat! It's such a horrible thing we've done to him. Won't someone please think of the scalper? No. He's lucky we're not grabbing him and throwing him in prison. Right? Like, I don't get why anyone else is not talking this way. Like, we should take these people, move them over to a jail, drop them in the jail, and forget about them. Right? And if they don't want that to happen, well then, get rid of this fucking speculative nonsense. Right? Those are the options that I'm going to give these people. Go to jail for the rest of your life and be forgotten about, or relinquish your properties that you're hoarding. Very simple dichotomy here. And I don't understand why we're negotiating with these guys. I don't understand why we're being like, oh, well, maybe a non-resident speculative tax of 20%, I suppose. We literally should be starting with, like, prison. Oh, no, you want to negotiate down from prison? Like, just like but the NDP has no balls. Like, they've got no cojones whatsoever, right? But house flippers might increase my property values. And here's what's so fucking ridiculous about this whole thing, right? Like, house prices are getting so high and are getting so ridiculous that like people can't buy the houses, right? So like you are going to end up with a situation where either all the properties get bought up by billionaire speculators, or no, that's like it, right? That's it. So we're essentially reestablishing feudalism is what we're doing. Like, and the people who have the property won't be able to sell the property, right? Because there won't be a buyer, right? What about snowbirds that buy real estate in southern climes? I don't give a fuck, dude. Like, that's fine. Like, sure, you can have like the house you have here and then have like another house down there. Like, I'm talking about the guys who like the slumlord owners of like 30 properties, right? Like, I don't give a fuck about these snow. That's the same thing that gets said about like you're talking about like Walmart and Amazon and Facebook, and then somebody says, well, my grandmother owns a business where she sells yarn, and she makes a decent pennies, and she hires a young girl down the road who helps her spin yarn. It's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what? No, we're obviously not talking about like Grandma Tilly hiring her niece, weaving yarn. Like, we're talking about multi-billion, like international corporations. Like, no one gives a fuck what Grandma Tilly does. Hey. This is actually big news. Well, it worked. Black Friday sales were so abysmal, multiple retailers are looking at potential bankruptcy. It also blows the Democrat myth out of the water that consuming demand is driving inflation, because consumer demand was flat, according to sales on Black Friday. This is how we kill capital. Well, actually, in truth, this is how capital kills itself, right? Capitalism kills itself. That its final act, its final destructive act is to kill itself. And how it does it is by making it so that no one even has disposable income. That no one can actually be connected to the system. That it expels so many people that and refuses to actually increase the wages and increase the amount that they actually contribute into the economy, that it kills itself. And it's happening, right? That Black Friday was a disaster. And no one is reporting on it, right? Big fucking shocker. Nobody's actually reporting on how big a disaster Black Friday actually was. Just how they're not telling us about how many cattle actually died in the catastrophe. Just how they're actually, like, they're not going, like, the revolution will not be televised, right? Like, they are not going to actually tell us how capitalism is dying. That you've got to come to guys like me to hear that story. I'm reminded of the woman retired on a pension after spending her life helping design missiles, who complained about the eviction moratorium. Literally met that person 2 weeks ago at a funeral. Yeesh. People are broke. There's no money in people's pockets. 57 US, but $1,000. I mean, yeah, and like the idea that like, it's the benefits. It's the benefits that's keeping people from doing all this. Yeah, it's the benefits. That's what's doing it. Yeah, the benefits. Yeah. Like, just what, like, junk. Just like literal, like, rats in your brain. Like, just like a nest of spaghetti. You know? Like, what we are really seeing, if you ask me, is we are paying a heavy price as a people for not including in our education system the reality of what an economy actually is. Like, by ceding authority to these religious ideologues, the neoliberal death cult, And by refusing to actually have our children read Adam Smith, read Ricard, read Marx, right? Read these people who are actual economists who have actually done economic work. Instead of having our kids read that, we've just filled their brains with myths that are being blown apart and being blown apart by reality itself. And it just and like instead of that, we're just gonna read Hamlet 5 times, right? Like, how about we actually read something that has something to do with reality? Which I mean, I have a degree in theater. Like, Shakespeare's good and all, but like, there are ways to interact with it that are good and ways to interact with it that are stupid. And having kids read Shakespeare, like, that's got to be the dumbest goddamn thing ever. No, you don't read Shakespeare, right? You either watch the play or you mount the play. That's what you do with Shakespeare. You want to teach kids Shakespeare, right? That's how you do it. And like, I have always believed that it should be part of a state-funded system to fund an institution, fund a group, fund a theater troupe whose responsibility it is to have these plays ready to go, to have them rehearsed, to understand what they're saying, to understand the subject matter, and then to do them, right? Like, so that we can actually show kids, so kids can come in and be like, oh shit, like, here's the theater, like, here's what it is, this is what it's all about. And so you can maybe actually like impress upon their minds the importance of these works, right? But instead of that, it's all just like hacks and idiots, moronic like English teachers talking about like interpretations within the text that don't exist and are pointless, even if they do, and like completely missing like obvious things that are like right in front of your fucking face. Like, this character is gay, right? Like, that's in almost every Shakespeare play there is a gay character, right? It's explicit in the text. It's extremely obvious. It is very, very clear, right? You've got to intentionally obfuscate the text to walk away from it believing anything else. And as Shakespeare's plays went on, that gay character became more and more prominent, right? Like, he became bolder with it as time moved forward. And like, but if you're just like reading it, right? And it's always like, to be or not to be, that is the question, right? Like, who is gay in King Lear? Likely the fool himself, right? Likely the fool himself is gay. There's always a gay character. There's always a gay character. They're always there. But what's interesting about the figure of the fool, and it's interesting that you bring up King Lear, the fool never gets played correctly, right? The fool is always misinterpreted, and the fool is always done badly, and always like presented as crass, usually. There's usually like a crassness that it gets interpreted as because we don't understand what's happening with the fool. And here's an interesting fact about medieval culture, right? The fool, right? The position of the fool was usually someone who had a mental illness, right? They weren't put into the position of the fool so that they could be made fun of or mocked or derided or belittled. It was understood within the court that a person with a mental illness was, and the quote is, touched by God, right? That they see the world in a different way. They are somehow different than the rest of us, right? But their experience is no less valid than our experience, and they are incapable of lying to us. They only have the truth. And so we have this idea of the jester in medieval times as just being like a goofy guy who tells jokes and juggles, right? And sure, maybe there's some of that going on. Like, for sure there was some of that going on. But, like, the fool in a royal court was usually a person with a mental illness who was still permitted to participate in the court, and who, when they spoke, their words were taken seriously. And you can watch, if you watch Twelfth Night, Ben Kingsley, in Twelfth Night, which was like done in the 80s, I believe, like the late 80s, Ben Kingsley's performance as the fool begins to kind of glimmer up on this idea that this guy has a mental illness. And Ben Kingsley's performance kind of puts him in a position where he's like lost a little bit, instead of like really doubling down on this idea that like, no, like this guy's got like a Forrest Gump kind of level of like a mental illness or something. And in no other Shakespeare text is this more obvious and more prevalent than in King Lear, where King Lear's fool, the fool in King Lear, is a prominent role. It is a prominent part. That King Lear is brought down in status to where he is essentially homeless, living in the streets, and his only friend is the fool. And if you read that text with this understanding that Lear is speaking with a person who has a mental illness, but then also understands that this is a person that's touched by God, the truth of the text starts to really sing. It really is like, and some of the language that's in it and some of the stuff that is said gets into like really, really deep, existential, dark territory that we don't have the capacity or the adult mental capacity to grapple with. I think, as a culture, that's why we don't do it, right? That's why we don't actually grapple with it. That's why we don't try, because it's beyond us. We don't even respect the disabled. Like we're not going to start listening to some guy who has a mental illness and take him seriously, right? Like that's not who we are as a people. So like that's, to me, like King Lear is a very challenging text, right? King Lear is a very challenging text because of who Lear is and because of what happens to him. And like the ending of King Lear, here's a crazy fact about King Lear. The ending of King Lear, after Shakespeare died, right? And theater was banned. Like, so Shakespeare's works were no longer staged because theater gets banned. And then Shakespeare dies, right? And then the theater comes back, right? And they encounter King Lear, right? And if you don't know, spoilers, the ending of King Lear is that he watches his most loyal and youngest and truest daughter die in his arms as a consequence of his own actions, and then in his grief he himself dies. That's the ending of King Lear, and it's gloriously beautiful. Like if you watch a real staging of King Lear, it is gloriously beautiful, and this ending was considered so dark that they changed it. They made it so that he came back and he became the king, and the daughter lived and she gets married and all this kind of stuff, so that it's a happy ending instead of a tragedy, right? And that's the ending that played for the longest period of time. That most of the times Lear has been staged, it's been with the happy ending. And it's only been in the modern period that people have been staging King Lear with the actual ending, right? Like, Lear is a tough play. It asks a lot of an elderly actor, and it asks a lot of a younger actor to portray mental illness, which is very difficult to do. Especially on stage. Like, it's one thing on film, right? But on stage, to do it night after night, right? It's asking an awful lot. And it also requires a lot of your audience, right? Because your audience has got to come along with you. And like, modern audiences are not there. We're not there. We're not grown up enough, frankly. Like, the Shakespeare's audiences during his period of time were fucking grown-ups. Like, they were fucking grown-ups. They understood what was going on, right? And they didn't take shit. They didn't take fucking shit. Here's how you know these guys were not taking any shit at all. Like, at all. So the Globe Theater, right, has a certain amount of seating, right? But the peasantry actually stood, right? That most of the people who were watching the play were standing, right? Standing for upwards of 4 hours, watching a play while standing, like shoulder to shoulder with each other. They pack them in, right? Before they get them into the Globe Theater, there were people outside the theater selling rotten fruit. Straight up, selling rotten fruit. You'll notice at the beginning of every single Shakespeare play and the end of every Shakespeare play, there's a narrator that comes out and sets the piece, right? And it's because everybody knew that if you see this guy again, the play is over, right? You see him at the beginning, you see him at the end, right? And so when they would mount new plays, everybody would get packed into the audience and everybody would buy that rotten fruit. Because if the play that got put in front of them was no good, they would start throwing this fruit. They would start like hooting and hollering and shouting and doing all kinds of stuff. And then the narrator would come out, settle everybody back down, right? Play's over. Like, we're not moving on with this. And he would say, ladies and gentlemen, the Scottish play. And they would just mount Macbeth. And everybody would watch Macbeth. Everybody loved Macbeth. Macbeth was like the hot shit. Like, literally, you could literally go to see a play. The audience could demand that the play cease because it's terrible. And they didn't sit there and take it and then murmur with one another, well, that wasn't very good. They literally shit on the shitty play as it was happening, demanded it end, and then got told a proper fucking story that everybody loved, which was Macbeth. So worst case scenario, if you're a British peasant during the time of Shakespeare and you go see some theater, is that you're gonna see a good rendition of Macbeth. Everybody loves this shit. Like, that's some adult shit right there, if you ask me. Like, no, I'm not gonna pay money to watch this shit and then murmur about it later. Show me something good. And the practitioners, the theatrical practitioners, were expected to have upwards of 40 plays memorized and ready to go at any one time, right? Like, so people could walk up to them. Like, they would be on the side of a road, right? Traveling around the way that they do, the traveling theater troops. And people could come up to them and be like, hey, do you know Twelfth Night? And they'd be like, yeah, let's go. And they'd have the costumes and everything ready to go, and they just fire it up because they knew how to do it, right? They were fucking professionals. Like, they were fucking professionals. And moreover, the entire reason the Shakespearean era of theater existed was because the royalty gave the peasantry money. That's what happened. That the British royalty at the time, in order to kind of quell the peasantry, right? In order to, quell the peasantry, but in order to, like, create a stability and a peaceful society, just gave the peasants money so that they had a disposable income. And it turns out that a lot of the peasants, when they have a disposable income, they want to participate in the theater. And what did it do? It created the golden age of theater. People will just sit around and do nothing, though. That's what we're told, right? People will just sit around and do nothing. If you give money to the peasants, yeah, it won't kick off a fucking golden age of theater. It won't kick off a golden age of literature. It won't kick off a golden age or anything like that, like it did under Shakespeare, right? Fucking William Shakespeare stands atop an enormous government subsidy, right? As our cultural icon, right? William Shakespeare is a Western civilization cultural icon that would not have existed without an enormous government subsidy, which was a direct cash payment to the peasantry. But people will just be lazy. Yes, I'm torn about how we put art in the back corner of museums under glass cases nowadays. No, we don't really care about art, honestly. We're more interested in these like non-fungible tokens and this garbage, basically. Like, our art is essentially the equivalent of dangling keys. It's all for distraction. It isn't for actually learning anything. It isn't actually for knowing anything. It isn't actually for exploring anything. It's certainly not to look at yourself as a person and learn something about yourself as a person, right? It's certainly not for that. It's so that at the end of the day, when you're exhausted, you can plop down on the couch and put some glittery lights in front of you so that you'll be distracted for a couple of hours before you got to go to sleep and then do it all over again. That's what we're producing, with like a couple of exceptions. And there are exceptions, of course. Things do slip through, right? But like, for the most part, just pull out some keys, dangle it in front of them, right? That's literally the entire Marvel franchise, Star Wars, Star Trek. Like, there's no maturity. It's all childish garbage that you forget the minute you watch it. Like, it literally doesn't matter what happens. And, like, maybe you'll walk out of there being like, remember that moment when they played the Beastie Boys song? Like, that's basically what you get. And, like, no, none of it matters. No one cares. It doesn't actually have an effect. It doesn't actually have an impact. Right? Nobody's gonna sit there like 6 months later and be like, man, remember that play we watched, right? Yeah, man, I've been really thinking about that. Like, that's not gonna happen, right? And what's happening is that people are so hyper invested. Like, the people who are hyper invested in this Marvel stuff, right? Like, it's obvious that they are bereft of actual religious, existential, and spiritual exploration, because they're trying so hard to turn this Marvel stuff into that, right? Which is why it needs to have diversity, it needs to have this, and there needs to be these critiques and all this stuff, and they're constantly in a perpetual state of like trying to improve it and make it better somehow, because this is what they've replaced religion with. And it's childish drivel that says nothing and is wholly unimportant, right? The entire Marvel universe, right? Three movies for Iron Man, 3 movies for Thor, 3 movies for Captain America, right? The Hulk gets his own movies, like everybody got their own movie, and then the Avengers stuff and all that kind of stuff. And what was it for? It was so that when fucking, spoiler alerts, when Tony Stark snapped and killed himself, we were all supposed to go, oh, I invested so much into it. But it was meaningless. It was like a type of sacrifice, I suppose. But time travel exists, so who gives a fuck? Right? Like, what's the lesson? What did we actually learn? The characters themselves didn't grow. How are we expected to? And like, Like, they're all one-dimensional nothing characters who are like arms dealers, billionaires, like failed experiments, like government experiments, steroid users, right? Or and then in some cases, literal like just gods and wizards. Like, there's nothing there. It's completely empty. And like, it's good for a faff, but that's not how we're supposed to be taking it. We're not supposed to be taking it like it's a faff. It's actually supposed to be important. Like, Black Panther is important because it's a black superhero thing. Captain Marvel is important because it's a woman, right? And it's all representative and all this kind of stuff. And I'm literally like, who gives a fuck at all? It's tripe. Got links for me? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? No, what do we got? 3 dead in Oxford high school shooting. Oh yeah. It's a shame to say, but like, reporting on these school shootings, like reporting on these shootings, it's like, what can be said anymore? Like, maintain a system of poverty, guarantee that these kids have no future, ensure that climate change is going to eradicate any chance they might have, maximize nihilism, maximize existential dread, tell them that when they fail, it's their fault and they're worthless, right? Like, yeah, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, and it happens so fucking often, right? It happens so fucking often, and you know what they're gonna do about it? Nothing. Right? Yeah, I mean, the whole fucking place is red flags. The whole fucking place is red flags, dude. Like, the whole fucking place is red flags. Like, the American flag might as well be a red flag. Like, there's... And they're still not doing anything about it. Like, that's what becomes, like, truly shocking. Right? Not that the events occur, but that they literally do nothing to address it, right? That, like, what they are doing is arming their teachers and doing drills and shit like that. Like, this is how huge the abandonment is in America. That it is become structural. That any other community, if here in Canada, if here in Toronto, we were experiencing monthly school shootings, right? If there were people walking around in schools and just shooting people, I would be like, where's the fucking military? Like, where's the fucking order? Where's the control? And why is this happening? Right? We would be demanding it. And anybody who wouldn't address it, we wouldn't take seriously. And yet in America, it's just become normal. Right? It's the normalization of it. It's just the idea that, yeah, you know, sometimes people are going to take a gun and shoot up the school. Normal. Totally fucking normal, right? Nope. This is it. What's this? CNN suspends Chris Cuomo. They suspended them. Documents. Sexual misconduct allegations. Yeah, okay. I mean, you could basically nail any of those guys with this. Chances are good that Cuomo actually wanted to, like, go ahead and do something reasonable, and they were just like, how can we find a way to shit can this guy? And so they did. There's probably a behind-the-scenes story that's more important. Like, they'll never actually tell you the reason they're shit canning people. Right? So much for Cuomo for president. What? Since when does sexual allegations prevent you from being the president? Like, literally, Donald Trump is walking around saying, grab him by the pussy. Like, since when does that fucking matter? All right, I'm going to play this, and I'm going to take a quick break.
Stocks way down on Black Friday. This is typically one of retail's biggest days, usually a good day for those stocks. Courtney Reagan joins us right now with more about what happened in the shopping and the online picture, too, Court.
Yeah, Becky, Black Friday really took a different turn than we thought it would. It is the final day, though, now in this Thanksgiving weekend shopping stretch, and the stakes really just got a little higher. Headlines about a new COVID variant didn't seem to deter in-store shoppers, but something led to lower spend online. While the quantification does vary, according to data from two store traffic tracking technology firms, shopper traffic surged year over year on Black Friday, up nearly 48 and 61%, according to Sensormatic and Retail Next, respectively. Though compared to pre-pandemic, Black Friday store traffic was down 28 and 27%, respectively. While traffic was down sharply on Black Friday this year compared to 2019, store sales were only down 5%, according to Retail Next. Compared to 2020, Black Friday sales were up more than 46%. Again, this is in store. But shopping trends online surprised to the downside. For the first time, Adobe says digital sales on Thanksgiving and Black Friday failed to grow year over year. Thanksgiving Day online sales were expected to grow 6%, but came in flat. Black Friday online sales fell 1% over last year instead of growing 5%. It's unclear if earlier buying, in-store shopping, or cautiousness drove that digital disappointment. But it does make today even more important, estimated to still be the biggest online day of the year, with growth expected of up to 4%. Let's see if we can do it and if we can top those big numbers from 2020.
Always cool to see a newscaster saying, like, we can do it in regards to maintaining a system that has failed. Like, always fun. Always fun. Like, reporting as if we're supposed to be celebrating this or caring about it at all. Yeah, it turns out that if you impoverish large sections of your society and give them no money, they can't spend money. Whoa! Surprising. Crazy. So, this one's from the Narwhal. I'm going to read this one aloud because I think it's actually important that we understand how duplicitous and shitty, and the duplicitous shittiness of the oil industry is continuing. Civ 6 a great game, dude. I've been playing Civ 6 with my brother. We've been doing duels. We should do some duels, Barnabas. I'm down. Let's do it. It's random civilization, dual map, tiny map, fractal, and just fucking go. No, that's the thing, is that we have found a way. If you do it the smallest map at online speed, just head to head. No fussing around with any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't take that long. Like, it's still like 3 hours, but like, you can still, it's not like the 10-hour extravaganza that you think of when you think of Civ games. Anyway, carbon emissions to pool noodles. Oil sands producers seek a beautiful rebrand. A leak of the newest industry PR offensive reveals an effort to steer attention away from pollution and towards the potential of carbon capture. Alberta's major oil sand producers want you to look at a barrel of bitumen and see a pool noodle. A leaked PR campaign from the oil sands giants shows the companies are eager to rebrand the carbon-intensive industry as a net zero resource that effortlessly turns its emissions into everything from water toys to carbon fiber boats and microchips. Currently being tested in focus groups, the Oil Sands Pathway Alliance campaign focuses on transforming carbon into everyday products with the tagline, "Energy, beautifully designed." A pitch video initially posted online for focus group participants to view, but which now has been taken down, was sent to the Narwhal by Keith Stewart, senior energy strategist with Greenpeace Canada, shows what the campaign will prioritize. Creating jet fuel out of our petroleum while using carbon from that process to make carbon fiber boats is a beautiful thing, a voice over the video says. Developing microchips out of carbon capture for refined oil is beautiful. Producing barrels of oil and making styrofoam chips out of the resulting carbon, that's beautiful. Producing oil from the resulting carbon, making pool noodles that kids can float on, beautiful. The campaign was prepared for a group composed of Suncor, Imperial Canadian Natural Resources, MEG Energy, ConocoPhillips, and Cenovus, who together are responsible for what they say is about 95% of oil sands production. Only MEG Energy responded to the Narwhal's request for comment, reiterating statements given by Pathways Alliance. The alliance was formed to push forward a plan for net zero emissions from the oil sand by 2050. But the focus on promoting positive messages about the oil sands, as revealed in the leaked material, is only the latest in a series of public relations and marketing campaigns over the years by both industry and government. Many of the campaigns were aimed at countering criticism about environmental impacts of extracting heavy oil from Alberta's oil sands, a region that holds the world's third largest reserves of crude, after Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, and requires large amounts of energy and water in production. I think this will be the 5th or 6th attempt to rebrand the oil sands, Stewart said. The basic premise of the Pathway Plan to achieve net zero emissions is this: continue producing bitumen in the oil sands, but couple that production with carbon capture and utilization technologies in a bid to decrease the overall carbon pollution of the industry. This includes a carbon dioxide pipeline from the oil sands region to a sequestration hub approximately 440 kilometers away, near Cold Lake, Atlanta. In a video posted to the Pathway site, MEG Energy President and CEO Derek Evans said it will be the largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage facility in the world, in terms of breadth, and the amount of carbon dioxide it would capture. The plan to remove emissions relies heavily on the development of new technologies to achieve its goal, and the campaign is vague about the details of converting carbon to pool noodles. This suggests that we can somehow separate the bad stuff, carbon, from the good stuff, oil as energy. Shane Gunster, an associate professor at the School of Communication at Simon Fraser University, told the Narwhal. And then that bad stuff we can, with technology, magically turn into the good stuff that we want. The plan highlights projects in Norway and the Netherlands as inspiration for the carbon capture, utilization, and storage component of the plan, though these projects aren't yet operational. The proposed campaign would join ongoing efforts from industry groups like the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and its campaign offshoot, Canada's Energy Citizens, which describes itself as the largest oil and natural gas advocacy organization in Canada. The Alberta government's own war room, officially dubbed the Canadian Energy Centre, also pumps out content touting the responsible development of the province's oil and gas sector. The recent public inquiry into anti-Alberta energy campaigns called for a long-term rebranding strategy in collaboration with industry and pointed to past campaigns from individual oil companies and organizations as flawed in their approach. Patrick McCurdy, an associate professor of marketing at the University of Ottawa, has tracked the last 15 years of evolving marketing strategies of oil sands stakeholders. In a 2018 paper, McCurdy found that the recommendation to brand and better sell the benefits of the oil sands dates back to a 1995 report from the Alberta Chamber of Resources, a resource sector industry group. But that recommendation wasn't taken seriously until 2010 as a response to mounting pressure from environmental campaigns. That was the year the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers launched its Responsible Canadian Energy campaign, alongside efforts by the government of Alberta to pitch the oil sands directly to U.S. consumers. The focus of that campaign was an oil sands worker, while simultaneously extolling the work done to protect the environment from the worst effects of oil extraction. These latest ads represent the evolution of the marketing strategies at play, morphing from a focus on what companies are doing to protect the environment to a focus on how oil and gas can improve lives. But for McCurdy, it's nothing new. The wonderful world of oil was a common advertising strategy, he said in an interview with the Narwhal, noting it's a strategy that harkens back to the rise of petrochemicals, in the middle of the 20th century. The proposed pathway campaign riffs off earlier industry ads like those from Cenovus in 2011 that highlighted other products made from petroleum, from artificial limbs to ultrasounds, but goes further by implying society can keep consuming oil and gas and other products made from fossil fuels as long as the resulting carbon is captured or reused. This does represent a departure from the earlier industry efforts to deny the existence of human-caused climate change altogether. The campaign joins a larger push to paint the industry in a different climate light and relieve the guilt and anxiety that many feel while trying to navigate a changing world, according to Gunster. Industry has been trying for a while now, especially certain parts of the industry, the bigger players, to integrate themselves into how we as a country, how we as a world address climate change, Gunster said. Companies are trying to position themselves as part of the solution rather than part of the problem, he said. For Stewart of Greenpeace, that cuts to the heart of the issue. Their problem is performance, not PR, he said. The emissions from the oil sands have increased 400% since 1990. The emissions performance of the oil sands, long a source of concern for those interested in reducing Canada's climate impact, is of increasing importance for producers and their long-term financial viability. In its recent World Energy Outlook, the International Energy Agency pointed to the real possibility of declining oil and gas demand, particularly for high-cost, high-emissions resources like the oil sands in Canada. The performance is also increasingly under the watchful eye of the federal government, with its pledges of net zero emissions in Canada by 2050 and its recent announcement at the United Nations Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, COP26, that it would put a cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector. It's all part of the reason that companies have been working to reduce their emissions intensity, the amount of carbon produced for each barrel of oil, even while ramping up production. Together, these companies account for the vast majority of the 83 megatons released by the oil sands in 2019 from production alone. That's equivalent to the yearly energy use of almost 37 million homes. The oil sands make up 11% of Canada's overall emissions, and they're increasing. Emissions from the oil sands have climbed from 15 megatons in 1990, an increase of over 400%. Adding the emissions associated with refining the bitumen in other countries and combustion would increase the number significantly. If all goes well with carbon capture, utilization, and storage, coupled with the possible use of small nuclear reactors and the emergence of new technologies, the Pathway Alliance projects it could eliminate 68 megatons of emissions per year by 2050. Oil sands advertising has an ideological function. Stewart said he thinks this campaign is part of the coming negotiations with industry stakeholders who want to avoid costly regulations while lobbying for subsidies. The Pathway Alliance did not make anyone available for an interview on the campaign and did not respond to questions about the viability of the technologies it promotes, but it did send a written statement. Pathways is focused on our goal of net zero emissions from oil sand operations by 2050 to help Canada meet its climate goals, including its Paris Agreement commitments and 2050 net zero aspiration, spokesperson Elaine Moore wrote in an email. We know Canadians want to learn more about our plan to meet this ambitious goal. We're building on our current communications to help share that information. However, nothing has been finalized at this time. Gunster, from Simon Fraser, said the campaign falls squarely into the political realm as a response to the mounting pressure from governments and citizens increasingly concerned about the direct impacts of climate change. Canadians don't buy products from oil companies directly, he said, noting there's no oil section aisle where you choose between Cenovus and Suncor like you do Coke and Pepsi. Their advertising has a kind of ideological function. It has a political function, which is to try and advance a vision of the world, the problems of the world, and how to fix the problems, Gunster said. Oil pitched as guilt-free, marketing professor. These kinds of campaigns can have an impact. Analysis of the previous oil sands campaign launched by the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers over a decade ago and released through access to information requests in 2012 showed that effort resulted in improved impressions of the oil sands and reduced concerns about their environmental impact. The large majority of conservatives and the majority of liberal supporters say the campaign makes them more inclined to believe there is an effort to limit environmental impacts, a more responsive industry, and that oil sands can be developed in a responsible way, reads the 2011 analysis conducted by Public Opinion and Marketing Research from Harris Decima. NDP supporters are also positively impacted by the campaign, but at a lower rate. Rashad Habib is a professor of marketing at what is now known as X University in Toronto. In an interview, she said the campaign appears to be aimed at those who aren't heavily involved in sustainability or the oil and gas industry, and won't be swayed by facts and statistics on what the industry hopes to accomplish. Part of it seems to be like, oh, here's a guilt-free option. You don't have to feel guilty about using it anymore, because it's energy. It's beautifully designed. So you can use oil and still feel good about yourself, she said after being shown the pitch video. That appeal to emotions in the pathway campaigns can be powerful and political, but it can also backfire, Habib said, particularly as the effects of climate change, like the wildfires in BC this year, start having a big impact in Canada. For Chris Battelle, an associate researcher at the Institute for Sustainable Development and International Relations, the move to limit carbon pollution from the oil sands is part of a conversation dating back decades that should have been acted on much sooner. My frustration is that we could have been doing this in 2006, 7, and 8, and could have rode that into a high oil price through 14, which then collapsed, he said, noting the additional costs involved in trying to eliminate emissions and the price slump of recent years. But they didn't do any of it, so there's just this real lack of intention there. Battelle added that it is questionable whether the oil sands producers, whose product is piped to the U.S. to be refined into various petroleum products, can withstand the shift to electric and hydrogen vehicles. That said, Battelle also argued Alberta is one of the best jurisdictions in the world for being able to effectively store carbon emissions underground, as long as companies pay for the infrastructure themselves. The campaign, however, doesn't get bogged down in those details. All across our country, beauty surrounds us wherever we are. It's there, intones the Pathways Alliance video. We need beauty in our lives, but we also need energy. Stewart said the campaign fails to capture the current mood, pointing to the visceral and real impacts of climate change that Canadians are experiencing, including BC's devastating wildfires. If the companies are serious about net zero, then that means changing their business model so they're no longer selling oil and gas. This is a mass hysteria. It's the only thing that can be concluded if you have any brains in your head at all. The seriousness of the issue is being met with a marketing campaign to convince people that the superpowers that we're giving them can be done guilt-free. This is overtly and obviously a mass hysteria. And the people at the top of the food chain, at the top of the fossil fuel industry, and their political surrogates are not interested in seriously addressing the issue that is in front of us. By their own admission, their plan is we will create a non-existent technology that we will then use to capture the carbon and then use that carbon to produce other forms of superpowers for you. Oh, and did we mention this whole strategy is based on the idea that we will invent a technology that will do what we say it will do, when we've never once told you the truth in the first place. These guys have been lying to us about the existence of climate change for decades. They're the most fraudulent people in the history of the planet. Their own scientists said to them, climate change is real and is going to have impacts on the ecosystem. And their response to that was to fund disinformation campaigns, to lie directly to your faces, and pretend as though everything was fine. And now they're doing it again. And if you're stupid enough to believe them, after they've lied to you over and over and over again for decades, then you are not only complicit, but I will happily call you evil on the level of the Nazis. They do not have the technology. They are not going to have the technology. They are grifters and liars, and the only reason you want to believe them is so that you can keep having superpowers that you must relinquish. We have to climb Mount Doom and throw the ring into the fire. We must relinquish this power, or it will destroy us. We have to stop. We have to stop. And that's what has to happen. And honestly, again, I am of the opinion that we should arrest all of these guys. We should arrest the Trudeau administration. We should arrest the fossil fuel companies, like all of them. Like from the person working on the pipeline to the person in the boardroom. We should have a trial, a Hague-level trial that results in the hanging of many of these people, just like we did to the Nazis. We've got to snap out of this mass hysteria. We have to. We don't have another choice. We're going to have to do without the superpowers for a little bit. Like, That's where the conversation becomes extremely absurd. That's where the conversation takes a turn into overt, incredulous absurdity. That so much of what we are doing is making toys. Literal baubles. Fucking LOL dolls. Plastic bottles. Absolutely asinine, childish bullshit that we can absolutely do without. We can absolutely do without. Like, and instead of saying, like, no, we've got to take these gas-guzzling trucks off the road, instead of that, we're heavily marketing them. Like, this is a mass hysteria. And if we don't step down from it, if we don't snap out of it, if we don't actually go, oh yeah, you can't eat money. Like, you can't eat money. You can't breathe money. You can't drink money. Right? Like, your air conditioner is not going to cut it for what's coming. Like, and this is what these grifters reveal in their hysterical arrogance. They are genuinely trying to convince us that they can outwit the fucking sun. That is not what's going on. They are genuinely attempting to convince you. They are genuinely attempting to convince you that they can create something out of thin air, a technology that doesn't even exist yet. You understand? A technology that doesn't even exist yet. And they're saying that will be our salvation. We will save you from the apocalypse we have created, and you should continue taking us seriously, even though we have lied to you for decades. Oh, where's our evidence that this will work? We don't have any. Where's our evidence that this will actually be a thing? We don't have any. Where's the facts? We don't have any. All they've got left is hysterical promises that sound an awful lot like a boyfriend who's about to be kicked out of his house by the girlfriend he's been abusing, saying, I'm sorry, baby, I'll do better. I'm sorry, baby, this is what I'm going to do. These are high promises from a group of liars with no evidence whatsoever. And even more than all of that, we are hanging the survival of the species on their ability to deliver on that promise. No. Break up with these guys. Dump the liberals straight away. If you're still voting liberal, I consider you as bad as a Nazi. Period. At least the Nazis didn't attempt to destroy all human life. If you're still voting liberal, if you're still voting conservative, and more every day, if you're still voting NDP, I consider you as bad as the Nazis. Dump these guys. Arrest the fossil fuel executives. Incarcerate them. for their many crimes against humanity. And more importantly than all of that, fucking stop. Cap this pollution. Do not fine people who go over the cap. Incarcerate them. Hard no. You are not allowed to pollute beyond this point. Hard no. Sorry, rich people, you don't get a yacht for your yacht that you can put a helicopter on and then launch a jet from. Too bad. Sorry, you don't get to shoot a fucking rocket into space whenever you like. Too bad. Sorry that you have to live a reasonable existence. Sorry that you actually have to spend time on Earth. Like, get fucked. Get fucked. And the shit that's coming out of Bezos' mouth now is genocidal. Like, Bezos is outright saying that he thinks that most people are not going to be able to live on the planet. Like, it's straight up eco-fascism, what he's espousing. Like, this guy needs to have his shit taken away. And before you think I'm joking, right? Right? Like, I know that sounds... I know that sounds fucking like a joke, but it's what they're doing, right? Like, they're parking their yachts in yachts, right? Like these fucking ridiculous, gaudy, childish toys for these little boys with massive daddy issues who refuse to grow up. Guys like Elon Musk, who obviously was not hugged once by his slaver father. Yep, carbon-eating unicorns are going to catch the carbon and fart clean energy. That they might as well be saying that. Like, that's what they're saying at this point. That, like, we're gonna find a magic fairy, and the magic fairy is just going to resolve all of our problems. Don't worry, you guys. We've got a magic fairy that's gonna come, and they're gonna take all the bad carbon out of the thing, and then all the carbon we'll use for magic fairy wishes, right? Like this is what they are saying, and we're taking it seriously. Like, that's what's the most shameful about it, is that we're actually taking it seriously, instead of just like telling these people to get fucked. And they absolutely should get fucked. Like, at least, like, for the crime of deceiving the populace on this scale, like, the destruction that exists in BC is 100% their fault. It's 100% their fault. It can't be anyone else's fault. It's 100% their fault. They knew it was going to happen. They lied to everyone about it. They let it happen anyway. And now they're trying to convince us to keep letting us do that. With what? Fairy fart promises? Arrest these guys. And anyone who stands in our way of arresting these guys, we should consider culpable. That's the liberals. Like, big yikes for the liberals and their supporters. Like, big yikes. Like, scary. Nazi level scary. Ugh. Americans are so free that if they don't participate in the destruction of their own planet by returning to wage slave fast food jobs that serve animals grown on slashed and burned rainforests, then the rulers will starve their children. Greatest country in the world. I'm going to save that one. That's a good one. Saved. Young adults hit hard by pandemic's economic impact, survey suggests. No fucking shit. No fucking shit. So you're telling me that if you create a system that destroys itself? Yes, people who are saying that carbon emissions are good for plants actually are essentially saying we should jump into live volcanoes because humans need heat. Exactly. No, exactly. Like, the hysteria has overtaken us. We are, and it's very, very unlikely, very, very unlikely that we are going to, like, are we even going to make the attempt to recover from this? Are we even going to try? Do you think? Like, that's the thing I find funny about this. Like, are we even gonna try? Or are we just gonna, like, put our head down, march towards the apocalypse, and just let it unfold? We should take bets on that. Are we even gonna try? Burn yourself out for dollar bills. Kill your children for a few cheap thrills. You got a problem, well that's too bad. You're too tired to see you've been had. Work or starve while we drop bombs. No such thing as right or wrong. We'll call you lazy while you work to death. You gotta work, you gotta earn a moment of rest. And I won't work for a psychopath nation. No, I won't work for a psychopath nation. Burn those corpses so you can speed by that garbage you don't need. You'll play the victim while you lose your grip. Why won't they work in the apocalypse and retreat into your stupid lies? You act confused while your children cry. You promise change but act the same. Gaslight, deflect, and take no blame. And I won't work for a psychopath nation. No, I won't work for a psychopath nation. As we collapse in the devil's lap, as we watch the world burn to ash, you'll whine like bitches on your way to the grave. Why won't those serfs just behave? You're fucking vampires, demons, and ghouls. We're done with being treated like fools. The curse is lifted, we're free from your spell. Keep on crying while you burn in hell, 'cause we won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, we won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, we won't work for a psychopath nation. Nobody wants to talk about the infrared absorption band of CO2. Understanding the mechanism of global heat retention is too hard. Yeah, it's too fucking hard. Like, look, man, I don't profess to be like a genius on any of this shit. I'm not sitting here being like, I know all of this stuff. Literally, I am standing here being like, the experts say this. I know carbon go in sky. Sky heat up. We burn. That really is where I'm at. I'm like literally like, well, burn carbon, carbon go into sky, and then sun go into carbon and heat everything up. Thanks, Harry. Appreciate that, bud. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, I'm in the mood to play all my like grunge stuff, so I'm gonna fucking do that. Why are monuments always erected to how great we are? Because that's all we've got. That's all we've got. We need monuments to how bad America is, like statues across West Virginia for the people. It's Joe Manchin, that is, yeah. No, like, I mean, like, we worship money. Money is something we created. And so we're essentially just jerking off to how great we are, right? Like, we're constantly talking about how, like, we're the apex predators. Like, we're the top of the food chain. Like, we constantly say this shit. Right? We're seizing control of our own evolutionary processes. Like that kind of dumb fucking garbage, right? As if like our eugenics on ourselves is going to result in anything other than fucking dumb pugs and shit, right? Like, we are not at the top of this. We are not at the top of this. That there is an energy that we live in and are sustained by that creates rules that we have to abide by, and we refuse. Manchin is just giving cover to the very conservative Democratic Party. If it wasn't him, it'd be Sinema. If not her, then someone else. Yeah, for sure. AOC equals Manchin. Well, I mean, AOC can't be Manchin because AOC plays a different character. She's in a different place, but it's no less insidious. All right. You gotta get ahead of the human race, and we're the lazy ones working at the end of your nukes and guns, and we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. God let his chosen ones wander forever in the burning sun, and 10 times worse the fate for us. Forget him, worship the dust, 'cause we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light on this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. Baptize us with rising tides and never let us see what hides inside, and cover our sins with dollar signs. The fire will burn away our pride, and we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light on this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. You could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all, and you chose this. And we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. We don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse. We'll be going soon. Yeah, we'll be going soon. It's not nice to fool, like, yeah, Mother Nature, like, I always imagine that she's, like, looking at us, like, if you use, like, the Mother Nature analogy, right, I always imagine that she's just kind of, like, watching us destroy ourselves, and she's just got this, like, little look on her face of just, like, oh, yeah, like, we're just a bunch of fucking assholes to her, like, she doesn't give a shit. And, like, when the fire sweeps through and wipes us out, she's just going to be like, oh, look, they did it. They actually did it. I didn't think they would. Right? Like she's not, like, actively trying to fuck with us. She literally, like, there are rules. Right? The rules were created, here they are, whether you like it or not. And, like, Mother Nature or, like, God or whoever is, like, sitting back and being like, yeah, I created these rules. Oh, look what you're doing. Oh, okay. And then we're just, like, gonna wildfire our brains out and flood and all that kind of stuff. And they're literally just, like looking at us like, huh, I can't believe they're doing it. I can't believe they're just, like, breaking the rules. Wow. Huh. Weird. Isn't that interesting? That's probably really what it comes down to, is that they're, like, any such force would look at us with just kind of like, oh, how weird. Interesting decisions. It's like when you're playing a game with someone. Like, I play chess, right? Online. And you're playing a game of chess with somebody, and they do something that's just, like, objectively bad. And you're just kind of like, oh, well, interesting decision. Decisions are being made. sold a package of lies, spun their stories and promised the skies. Now they're robbing us in front of our eyes. They get off watching your children die, and the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Raise the banners, take up the cause. Suicidal nations don't have any laws. Lift up your heads and take out your claws. Watch what happens when your apathy thaws, 'cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Kill these fascists, break all their bones. Take everything away, don't leave them alone. Bury them beneath a mountain of stone. They're evil, we won't forgive or condone. And the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Won't go down without a fight. I'm at the point where I'm beyond frustrated with electoral politics. I'm going to do what I can personally, prepare, organize, learn, and grow. Yep. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Right? Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm going to try to capo this one. My first time trying to capo this one, so if it's a disaster, then so be it. I'm going to one. Yep. Harvest the bones from your loved ones' graves. Brew up the dark elixir. Pour out their souls with infernal machines, burning their souls to go quicker. What happened to Lytton? You embarrass me with stupidity. What happened to Lytton? I'm not gonna burn down quietly. And when they flee from your machines in clouds of black exhaust, they'll find their vengeance in the skies to bounce outwards. what happened to Lytton? I'm not gonna burn down quietly. Quietly, the grave past time so silently. Why wake us from our peaceful sleep? We'll see you join us in the deep. What happened to Lytton? You embarrass me with your stupidity. What happened to Lytton? I'm not gonna go down quietly. Let the dead sleep. Let the dead sleep. Let the dead sleep. Let the dead sleep. Yeah. That's a nice iteration. That's a nice iteration. Capo 5. Let's see if that sticks. This particular song I've always known is still settling. It's still shifting and changing. It's still shifting and changing. Some of the other ones are like pretty firmly planted. Like I'm not going to see too much change from them, I think. But that one is still figuring itself out. All right. I'm going to play this one. One more. You like that, Amanda? You like that? Yeah, it had kind of like a Rob Zombie, meets Johnny Cash vibe. That's kind of what I thought about it while it was happening. I was just like, oh, this is like if Rob Zombie was Johnny Cash, that's what that would sound like. I think there's something nice about that. All right. Here's the last one, and then we'll move on. Another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you set explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. trying to give it up, and this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Fuck these guys. Fuck these people. Fuck these people, man. Fuck every single one of them. Fuck Trudeau. Fuck his new environmental minister. Fuck Chrystia Freeland. Fuck every single person who's even thinking about voting Liberal. Fuck the fossil fuel industry executives. Fuck all of these people. All of them. They should be all rounded up and hung as criminals. Unbefucking-leavable that we're still tolerating this bullshit. Unbefucking-leavable that we're still voting for these overt, obvious psychopaths who at this point must be actively working to destroy the species. Our entire culture is a fraud. Our entire civilization is a fraud. Nothing can be salvaged from it except for a couple of books. Get rid of all of it. All of it. Fuck all of it. It is utterly and completely unsalvageable and pointless. Ugh. Yeah. No, that's the thing. Onward, we're necromancers, right? Like if we wanted to put in like fantasy terms and like discuss it as if we were like a fantasy creature, right? Or in like fucking like the Wheel of Time or like Lord of the Rings or any of that kind of shit. We are obviously necromancers. Like we take dead corpses that have through time turned into what dead corpses turn into. We've extracted them from the earth, right? With like a ritualistic, like with machinery that we then compress and change and distill using like dark alchemical processes, and then pour that liquid into infernal machinery forged through hellfire so that we can what? Merry Christmas, dear. Open it up. Oh, another LOL doll. Yay. It'll go so well with your collection. Like. Ugh. We are necromancers. Like, we are. And like, and even that is going to get really obvious. Like these guys that are like, I'm going to attain eternal life by downloading my consciousness into a machine. Like that sounds like some necromantic shit right there. Like that sounds like some fucking vampiric, ghoulish shit. Like I'm going to oh yeah, I'm for sure gonna like I'm going to literally drain blood out of the young in order to infuse it in myself so that I can extend my life. Like, you fucking... Like, these people are literally vampires. Like, they are brutal, vampiric creatures. And we have ceded control of our lives to them. And are expecting them somehow to make any decision other than the completely psychotic one that they continuously make. These people are psychopaths. Like, they're not going to make any decision except the most psychopathic one. Because that's what they are. It's observable. You can see it. Like, you just need to look at them for a minute. And, like, take off your, oh, Daddy Elon glasses, right? Like, take that shit off. Like, Elon Musk is, in my view, like the personification. Okay, hold on. Here's a new thing that I want to do. And I got to remind myself to do it. Twitter.com. I realized the other day, you can just talk to people on Twitter, right? You could just send them shit. Because Elon Musk has this, like, community of people who, like, jerk him off constantly, near as I can tell, Elon Musk is, like, the personification of daddy issues. He just has enormous daddy issues. And so I'm going to start every single day on this stream, I'm going to send a message to Elon Musk telling him about his daddy issues, which he obviously has, right? Just like his entire base, right? His entire base is a group of people who have daddy issues. And so they've replaced Elon, they've replaced their daddies with Elon, Daddy Elon, right? So what are we going to say to Elon Musk today? What are we going to say to Elon Musk today, right? Hey, Elon, did your slaver father even say, I love you? Tough to be that kid. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Like, fuck this guy and his stupid daddy issues. Like, I'm like over this. Let's say something to Bezos. Can we say something to fucking Bezos? Bezos, Jeff. Is he even on this thing? Yeah, there he is. What should we say to this fucking idiot? Like, what should we say to this fucking moron? Pollute space? Nah. Let's, like, this is the thing. The difference between Musk and Bezos is, like, Bezos is just empty, right? Like, he's just hollow. There's nothing there. He literally is just, like, the manifestation of nothingness. That he vomits out garbage in order to try and prove that he has something going on inside of him, but he's just an empty landscape, right? He's just... There you go. Much money and your face still looks like that. Oh, can't misspell the your. Can't misspell the your. How embarrassing. We did it. Yeah, fuck these guys. Like, fuck these guys. Like, I don't actually care about Twitter. That's the thing. Like, I always forget to put my shit up on Twitter. I constantly forget, like, what's Twitter for? Like, people send me things occasionally on Twitter and I just miss it. Like, I just don't, like, I don't care at all about Twitter. And so I'm trying to find a way to make, like, Twitter a thing, and I think this is it. I think I'm just gonna shit on people. Like, let's shit on Trudeau. Like, at Justin Trudeau. So, what are you going to say to your kids when climate change starts to burn down their houses? Yeah, I think that's good. Like, these guys are incredible psychopaths. And, like, no one seems to actually be pointing that out or talking to them as if they are psychopaths. Like, these are the inevitable results of what's going to happen, right? Wealthy people don't have to worry about stress or mental illness. They can afford to eat something healthy. They don't spend their time in a factory where pollution is destroying their lungs. Well, and mocked, like, what's absurd about it is that I read an article recently on the channel talking about like, a therapist for the wealthy literally wrote an article talking about these guys, and they're fucking miserable. Like, they're all miserable, right? Like, this idea that they're going around, they're, like, jet setting and they're all happy and all this kind of stuff is not true. They're all fucking miserable. So the system has failed even them, right? That with all their wealth and all their money and all their glamour and all this kind of crazy shit, they're fucking miserable, right? So here you have a situation where you've got a group of people who are miserable because the material conditions of their lives are poor, and they could use some resources in order to improve the quality of their life. And you've got a group of people who have so much fucking money they don't even know what to do with it, and it's making them miserable, and they can't figure out, oh, maybe we could give your money to the poor. Give your fucking money to the poor. Like, it's like ancient knowledge, right? Like, oh, you're miserable with all your money? Give your money to the poor. It might make you happier. And in fact, all of the studies show, and all of the evidence we have from like the secular sciences shows that if you give your money to the poor, it's the number one way to improve your own mental state. That if you're feeling down or I don't have any meaning and nothing I do matters and all that kind of stuff, take $100 bill, give it to a total stranger who you're pretty sure needs it, and you're suddenly going to be like, oh, I feel a lot better. Because you, at the very least, improved someone else's day. And you carry with you this idea that like, oh, you know what? I matter. I did something nice. And somebody really appreciated that. And hey, maybe start giving away a lot of fucking money. Maybe fucking Bezos could take $1 billion and just walk around the streets throwing money at people. I'm blown away. I'm blown away that there isn't anybody doing that. Like, if I had $100 billion, if I had $100 billion, I would literally have, like, I'd have a security force with me while I did this. Don't get me fucking wrong. But I would have, like, a wicker basket. Literally, it would be a wicker basket full of, like, wads of, like, thousands. Like, I'd have, like, $20 bills in wads of, like, 1,000. And I would walk down the street, and I would say, here you go. Hey, here you go. And I would just walk down the fucking street, right? This is what I would do, and I would do it all day. All day. This would be what I would do. And when the wicker basket got empty, we'd pull another fucking wicker basket out. And for some reason, it's got to be a wicker basket. I don't know why it's got to be a wicker basket, but it's got to be. And I don't know why anyone doesn't do this. I think it would be a great time. I think you would be surrounded by a bunch of people who would be super happy you were there. You know that you're helping people. You know that the quality of their lives are improving. You know that it is, right? You know that you're stimulating the economy. You know you're doing all kinds of wonderful things, right? To help these people out. You know you're doing that, right? Like, I would feel good about myself. I would feel super good about myself. I think everybody would feel good about what was going on, right? And like, I could walk up to a politician and be like, hey, maybe we should do this structurally. What do you think? Maybe we should fucking do this structurally. Maybe we should make it so that structurally everyone has this happen. What do you think? What do you think? Oh man, this is great. Throwing money at people, right? Like, hey, like all that kind of stuff, right? People would be like lining up. People would be calling other people on the phone. I'd just be walking down the street, right? Why does nobody do this? Because you know what would happen, right? Somebody would get in their heads to like, I'll steal that basket. I'll shoot. And I got to tell you, you know what I would do? You know what I'd do? I'd have the basket, and I'd be giving the money away, and then somebody would take the basket and run with it, and I'd literally just be like, another basket. I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even care. They need it. They obviously need it. They did that, right? That's fine. Let them have it. There you go. There you go. Right? I don't give a fuck. But like, grinning, you're onto it. Capitalism turns owner into ghouls. They suffer in different ways, mental, spiritual, emotional. They sear their consciousness until they're unrecognizable. That's the other thing. The more wealth you accumulate, the more disconnected you become. The more incapable of compassion and emotionality you are, right? You literally don't understand what it means to somebody. Like, yeah, but this is the thing, is that because we're living in this digital age, we're so disconnected from one another and isolated. Like, this is why I say, like, they hand the money to someone, right? Because what will happen is you'll hand the money over, you'll see them react, and the energy exchange will occur. There will be an exchange of energy that occurs, which is what happens on a one-to-one basis, right? And you will suddenly be hit with this energy of excitement and gratitude, right? Knowing, and you'll know that their life has changed somehow, right? And for you, it was almost nothing, right? Like if Jeff Bezos gave somebody $1,000, he would probably, in the time it took him to reach into the basket, pull the $1,000 out, and give it to the person, he likely would have earned another $1,000, right? Like this is what's going on with Bezos. Like that's how much money he has now. Is that like in this process? So he essentially has just a never-ending bucket of money. He just never. It's unending. And the idea that he's not like just walking around tossing it out in the middle of the streets. He should take a blimp. He should take one of his blimps, right, full of drones, and give each one of those drones a bag of money, and he should drop them down chimneys and shit, right? You should have a drone go and just like fly into somebody's window and just drop off a bag of money and then leave. You should have a little note on it, courtesy from Jeff Bezos, right? Little signed letter from Jeff Bezos, from my heart to yours, right? Just fucking dropping these things all over the fucking place. And it would create a kind, for sure it would create a kind of hysteria and a kind of chaos in and of itself. Fuck, it can't be worse than what we're doing now. Fucking, but you just know that Bezos would do something like, I'm going to drop that money in the suburbs. Like, fuck you, Bezos. Get fucked. It's like literally like a drop pattern that actually just straight up excludes the black neighborhoods. Like literally a line drawn around them. That's so baffling to me, dude. Like that's so fucking like. But more I think about it, like that person has black skin. They are inferior to me. There was a story of a man who sold his soul to the devil in exchange for his chimney being filled with money. I think he made the chimney bottomless or something because he got greedier and greedier, and it angered the devil. And he faced some form of retribution. I mean, I feel like the devil being angry at you is probably not a good start. Probably not a good start. Mark Twain has like an absolutely beautiful statement on Twain on the devil. He's got a really, really beautiful statement on the devil. Come on. They're being dicks about it. Come on. Oh, that's why. Mark Twain, quote, the devil. Oh, yeah. I love this. But who prays for Satan? Who in 18 centuries has had the common humanity to pray for the one sinner that needed it most? Our one fellow and brother who needed a friend yet had not a single one. The one sinner among us all who had the highest and clearest right to every Christian's daily and nightly prayers, for the plain and unassailable reason that his was the first and greatest need, he being among sinners the supremest. Mark Twain, man, he was a real character, dude. This was a real interesting guy. Like, and like he created the Prince and the Pauper trope, right? Like the idea that like no, he didn't create it. It did come from like an Aesop bit, but he definitely like popularized it. It became like the thing. Because of him, the idea that a rich man and a poor man switch places and then live each other's lives, which is then picked up by like Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places, right? Like that kind of idea of like, I'm very rich, you're very poor, let's just switch places and see how we do. The point of capital accumulation is that if we entrust the majority of the community's wealth to a small group, they will make decisions that benefit all of us. There's a certain logic to it, but it doesn't work in practice. Well, like, but like, there's literally no evidence for that. Like, that's the thing that kills me, right? It's like, if we entrust the majority of the community's wealth to a small group, they will make decisions that benefit all of us. So, make a group of people as selfish as they can possibly be, and that will make them benevolent. Like, that's what that says, right? Be as selfish as you can, and the result will be benevolence. It's like the invisible hand of the market shit. Like, literally, like, chaos brings order. Right? Like, greed is good. Selfishness is altruism. Like, we're in real, like not to bring out the trope that they keep bringing out, but we're in real 1984 space with this shit, right? Like, use their weapons against them. Right? They don't read 1984. They barely remember 1984. They read it when they were fucking 16, right? They don't know anything about that book, right? And they certainly aren't using it to analyze themselves or their own society. Use their own weapons against them. Like, anytime they bring up any text, become a master of that text. Like, that's what I say. That one of the greatest failings of the left, if you ask me, is that anytime the right grabs onto a text or some form of literature, we get into a real rejection place. We get into a real, like, kind of thing. And I think we should do exactly the opposite. If the right holds up a text, we should become masters of that text. We should be able to quote it. We should be masterful about it, right? And not only masters of the text, but masters of the author. Like Ayn Rand, for example. Ayn Rand is a hack. Like, their fucking worship of her work. Like, she herself disproves her own thesis as a figure. Anybody holding on to Ayn Rand shit is literally like, yeah, but Ayn Rand, like, literally used government subsidies, was on welfare, would have, like, suffered and died without it. Like, what are you fucking talking about? She literally was just a simp for capitalists. She was like one of these Elon Musk fanboys, just jerking off an industrialist who likely was just giving her orgasms, frankly. Like, let's be fucking real, right? She probably just wrote this simp book about this, like, big, powerful, strong dude because she probably had a big, powerful, strong industrialist in her life that was giving her fucking orgasms. And so she was just writing, like, porn fiction about him. And this is what you're taking and using as, like, the basis of your, like, economic system and your ideological thinking. Like, it's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing that someone would do this with this text. It's like romance novel level. Like, that's what it is. It's like they opened up a fucking romance novel with the dude on the front, like, holding the woman, riding a horse, holding a sword, that kind of crazy shit. And they read it and they went, oh, wow, this is the basis of how I'm going to govern America. Like, that's fucking Ayn Rand's work. Like, it's literally just, like, fan fiction. It's like Twilight fan fiction. Which, I can't tell if that insults Ayn Rand or if that insults Stephanie Meyer, but... Like, can you imagine if somebody fucking showed up with Twilight and it was just, like quoting from Twilight, being like... No, I can't do it. I fucking can't do it. It's too stupid. Yeah, Ayn Rand was the daughter of a Russian petit bourgeois store owner that got destroyed by the Stalin era. She was bitter, yeah. Like, big fucking shot. It's like every so often I go around and people know I'm a communist, and somebody will show up and be like, my grandfather really suffered under Stalin and bad things happened, and I literally like look at him and I'm like, where was your grandpa from? I'm like, well, he was from Ukraine. I was like, oh, what organization was he part of? And they're like, well, oh yeah, okay. I say that a lot to these guys. Oh yeah, okay. I end up saying that. Oh yeah, okay. Right? Like a lot of these guys who are coming up to me and being like, Stalin did terrible things to my family, who literally were Nazis. Literally were Nazis. Like, and a bunch of those fucking Nazis got shoved into Canada. Gonna go clean toilets. Still listening. Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Clean toilets. My God. What a time to be alive. You know, at least you're doing, like, honestly, dude, like, that is like, real work. Like, that is a real thing that, like, you should be amongst one of the most well-paid people on in the society. Like, this idea, if anybody who cleans a toilet should be like venerated and brought up. Like, I remember when I was growing up, there was a janitor that worked in my school, and everybody said, you don't want to end up like the janitor. And when I look back on that period of time, the only fucking person who was doing anything meaningful whatsoever was that fucking janitor. Right? Like, he should have been the best paid guy there. We should have all respected him. We should have treated him with respect and dignity. His job should have been venerated. And like, what is it he's doing? He's cleaning up after us. We're all just like going around, like filling garbage bins and putting our shit all over the place and doing all kinds of dumb fuck shit. And he shows up and he cleans it. Like, we should regard his profession as holy and sacred. What he's doing should be considered one of the most venerated things, and the people who do it should be considered holy. Like, we should, when they show up at places, we should give them food for free. We should look at them and treat them as like, no, your money's no good here. They should just get shit for free. Like, fuck this whole idea. Like, oh, well, you don't want to end up like, what are you fucking talking about? Do you know what happens if a person doesn't do that job? Like if your stupid white-collar bullshit bourgeois stuff just disappeared, no one would care. Like, no one would notice or care, right? Like, if all these bankers suddenly disappeared, like, if all these lawyers fucking suddenly disappeared, right? Like, if all this shit went down, like, people would not really notice. Like, it would just, we'll just go on with our lives, right? If all these fucking professors and all this goddamn shit, if all that fucking disappeared, everybody was like, oh, well, move on with their lives. If the cleaners disappeared, this place would turn into a shithole. I'm not exclusively trying to pump your ego, bud, but I'm just like, because I'm like dead serious about it. Like, our worldview is inverted. Like, we've inverted what is important in the society. And it's like really, really fucking obvious. It's like really, really fucking obvious. Anyway, I'm embarrassing you. So I'll stop. Spoiler alert. There will continue to be new COVID variants until we reach the final strain of the virus called communism. Wake up, sheeple. Fuck yeah. Thanks, Tommy. Just like laying it out. Like, whenever somebody tells me they're in law school, my favorite response is, oh, why do you think the world needs another lawyer? You know what? One of my good friends is a lawyer. One of my good friends is a lawyer, so I tread pretty lightly when it comes to talking about lawyers, honestly. But, like, even that guy is starting to get to be, like, I talked to him, and, like, even he's starting to get to be like, yeah, like, everything is just billionaires talking to each other. Like, and he even has noticed that there's a shift. That, like, it didn't used to be billionaires against billionaires. That it was, like, regular people. And, like, business people, obviously, and, like, all this kind of stuff. But more and more, he's just like, yeah, it's like everybody's getting pushed out. And all we can deal with is billionaires now. It's like, yeah. A metaverse mega yacht that just sold for $650,000 is the most expensive NFT sold in the Sandbox virtual world. Shut this shit down, eh? Shut this shit down. Someone paid $650,000 for a virtual mega yacht. I repeat, the yacht does not exist beyond a virtual world called the Sandbox. Every time I see a story like this, I not only think we need to rein this in, but also that taxing the rich isn't enough. We need expropriation. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, this is madness. Like, this is fucking crazy, dude. $650,000 for nothing. Like, it's a digital bauble. It's literally nothing. Like, not only should we shut this fucking Sandbox down, like, the fucking climate change disaster that is NFTs. Each one of these Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, each one is a climate crisis, is a climate catastrophe. Every single one. Like, and yet it seems as though we're just completely incapable of, like, oh yeah, it's totally rational that Bitcoin uses the same amount of energy as the country of Argentina. That's normal. Yeah, Ethereum, yeah, that should definitely take the same amount of power as Ireland. That makes sense. Like, we have a mental illness. We've got a really bad mental illness. And meanwhile, nearly 600,000 people accessed Ontario food banks in a year. So, like, literally the rich are spending upwards of $600,000 to get fake bullshit digital copies of yachts, while there's 600,000 people in Ontario alone going to food banks. Like, the system is a failure. It does not work. I don't know what evidence we're going to need. I don't know what we're going to have to see. Yeah, I remember adults villainizing unions when I was a kid, and now I'm just sad that I grew up around so many suckers. Yeah, dude, tell me about it. Yeah, just trying to keep people alive. A study examines burnout among people who work with the homeless. Like, I can't imagine what it must be like working directly with people who you know we could resolve this issue, right? Like, we know that we can resolve this issue. We know that we can do it. Like, hard fact. We can eliminate homelessness from our society. We know how to. We know that we can. We know what to do. There is a blueprint. It already exists. Other nations have already done it. It must be exhausting to work with these people knowing that. Like, and to know that the only reason we're not doing it is because we're ruled by a fucking death cult. Like, that more and more, I have come to believe, wants it this way. Oh yeah, it's very funny to me that a huge superhero trope for the last 30 years has been like, supervillain is concerned about a real problem. Hero opposes them because of their violent methods. Does not actually do anything about the original problem. Right? You ever notice that? You ever notice that at the end of every like Iron Man movie or like Superman or Batman or any of that shit, that like the problem that the supervillain is working to address just doesn't get addressed? It literally is like the superhero narrative is literally, we have to suppress violent revolution. That's literally the superhero narrative that we've been fed. And that's just self-justified. Okay. Well, guys, we've done it. We've hit the 9 p.m. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. And this means that your experience and your life is exactly as valid as everyone else's. That includes the billionaires. And the billionaires are trying as hard as they can and paying as much money as they need to convince you that that's not the case. Fuck them. Revolt, rebel, repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.